Well, the inevitable has happened. Spidey is back in the MCU, at least temporarily. And I feel bad for Spidey because it's like having two parents fighting over a child. And the one parent saying, "Come on over here. Sleep over for the night. We're going to have fun. We're going to order pizza. We're going to eat chips and salsa. It's going to be a good time." And then the other parent saying, "No, you can't go over there. All right, you can go, but only for one night. You get one night to go. And then you got to come back here. And don't eat pizza. Eat your vegetables. Eat healthy." Poor Spidey doesn't know who to listen to. He's being pulled in all directions. And that's a kind of situation we find ourselves in now. Well, here, this is coming from Forbes, and it says here, Spider-Man back in Marvel Cinematic Universe after Sony Marvel reached a deal. Sony just couldn't stand strong enough. Marvel Disney was too tough. They must have made him one heck of an offer. It seemed inevitable because it was. Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures announced this morning that Spider-Man will return to the MCU after the studio reached a new deal to continue their partnership. Fans and investors around the world will rejoice at the news as it ensures billion-dollar business for the wall crawler for years to come. Today's news comes after the studio sparred over who was responsible for negotiations breaking down and resulting in initial announcements that Spider-Man would no longer appear in the MCU and the future of Spider-Man sequels would not include crossover with Marvel's shared world of superheroes. The new deal sees Marvel Studios producing the next installment of Spidey's cinematic franchise, with Kevin Feige taking a lead role in production. Spider-Man will also appear in other MCU movies going forward, as he has previously. The third film in the modern series releases July 16th, 2021. So it's unclear, because I had read a report that there was they signed a deal where Spider-Man would have his one feature film in the MCU, and then he'd make an appearance in one other film. But in this, Forbes is saying that there's movies also appear in other movies. So I don't know if, I'm not sure if there was some extra clause added where he could appear in more than just one. Feige made an interesting remark during today's announcement, and it's hard to say whether it's a throwaway line or a hint at something more substantive to come. When commenting on his pleasure at reaching a new deal with Sony, Feige said, as Sony continues to develop their own Spider-Verse, you never know what surprises the future may hold. So Sony is going to go forward. They still have the Venom Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man currently, but I guess that'll change after one MCU movie. Does that imply Sony's planned series of connected Spider-Man spin-offs will somehow wind up merged into the MCU, possibly having a spin-off character, notably Venom, appear in the solo Spider-Man movies? Does it mean Marvel is offering to co-produce the spin-off films as well, even if they're kept separate from the Spider-Man series? Is it just a friendly endorsement to Sony's other unrelated spin-offs? My guess is making the new deal happen included Marvel's involvement in Sony's spin-offs, and some plan to allow the MCU version of Spider-Man to cross over into those spin-offs. As for the spin-off character, oh my gosh, it's getting confusing. Spin-off, to appear in the solo Spider-Man releases. Oh boy, okay, well I'll link the article, you can read the rest of it. It's too many spin-offs. I think the best thing to do is have Marvel set Spidey up for success, depending on what kind of arrangement that they have and Sony has with Tom Holland and how many more movies he's going to do. I think you got to kind of wrap up to a degree somehow the storyline with Peter in the MCU. The perfect way I think to do this would be to use the Spider-Verse, have Peter have his own movie, and possibly at the end of the movie he gets sucked into the Spider-Verse, and then he ends up in Sony's Venom Spider-Man, universe thing, where if you could keep Tom Holland, if you were going to keep Tom Holland, then that would be the way to do it, because I guess you have to wrap up the storyline with the MCU, but you could still leave it open and just have him enter in if you enter into a Spider-Verse, and then all of a sudden he ends up in the Venom Sony's Spider-Verse, then, you kind of get around the problem of just having to sort of eliminate the character in the MCU. because you know where he is. So it still leaves it open for them. Plus, it sets Sony up for success, which is, only good for business purposes. To have, to keep those relations good. You're wrapping up the MCU story. You're keeping Tom Holland. You're sending him over and setting up Sony well, and you're leaving it open for him to come back. So I think that'd be a great route for them to take. They could also use Miles Morales in the Sony verse. You could have Tom Holland, if again, depending on Tom Holland's contract, have him pop in the Sony Spider-Man verse, have him kind of like the Spider-Verse movie did, the animated Spider-Verse movie did, where you have Peter kind of training a Miles Morales to take over. And then you have, I guess since there's going to be other appearances, you could still have Tom Holland back in the MCU popping up every now and then for his appearances, if that's, depending on what kind of deal they worked out, how many appearances there are. So there's different ways to go that would still make this work without making it seem too, unsettling for the audience. But that's what I would do. I would have him pop into wrap up the storyline with the MCU, open a Spider-Verse, have him go into it, and then he, all of a sudden appears in the Sony's Venom-verse, where then, maybe he could find a way out, come back in the MCU or something for his appearances. I'm sure they could, that would make sense. But let me know what you guys think of the big news down in the comments below. If you like the video, subscribe, share, thumbs up, all that stuff. Till next time, lock the doors and hope they don't have blasters.